Got a case of wanderlust? Allow us to help you scratch that itch. Welcome to MojoTravels, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 reasons why New Zealand should be your first post-pandemic trip. Are you a fan of our videos? Be sure to subscribe to MojoTravels and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at the many factors that make New Zealand such an appealing destination, both in the wake of the pandemic and just in general. The options available to travelers in the near future will be dictated on a country-by-country basis. But whenever New Zealand does open itself up to international travel, here's why you should consider it for your first trip abroad. Number 10. It handled the pandemic extremely well. New Zealand managed to beat COVID-19, at least the initial outbreak, with remarkable efficiency. At the direction of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who some have gone so far as to call the most effective leader on the planet, the country took an aggressive approach to combating the spread of the virus. By beginning lockdown measures when they had just over 100 cases and rolling out testing across the country, as well as contact tracing, New Zealand found itself with 0 new cases by the end of May 2020. And they achieved this while maintaining a focus on transparency, communication, and kindness. Of course, New Zealand's efforts were aided by a number of local factors, including a low population density and it being a relatively geographically isolated island. All of this, when added up, however, makes it a great choice for anyone feeling anxious when traveling post-pandemic. Number 9. A sense of security. New Zealand's handling of COVID-19 certainly makes it an appealing traveling destination, but even before the pandemic, it has long inspired confidence in terms of safety and security. Second only perhaps to Iceland, it consistently ranks among the safest countries in the world, both for local residents and outside visitors. Apart from the occasional case of pickpocketing or petty theft in cities and tourist-centric areas, crime rates are extremely low. Things can get a bit rowdy when exploring the nightlife of Auckland and Wellington, but no more so than you'd expect from most cities. Furthermore, unlike neighboring Australia, the New Zealand wildlife similarly presents little to no risk, even when you're out exploring the city's vast expanses of picturesque wilderness. Quite frankly, you're far more likely to hurt yourself by twisting an ankle on a beautiful hike or similar activity than experiencing violent crime or a wildlife attack. Number 8. Adventure activities abound. New Zealand's diverse landscape and large swaths of untarnished wilderness make it prime for adventure. As such, it's something of a mecca for outdoor enthusiasts, especially those who like to mix and match activities. Tasman National Park, located at the north end of the South Island, provides ample opportunity for hiking, with trails to suit most experience levels. Exploring the park's coast by kayak is another good way to explore everything the park has to offer. For those seeking a unique hiking experience with a major payoff in terms of natural sights, the heli hike to Franz Josef Glacier is one you'll never forget. Whitewater rafting, mountain biking, cave spelunking, ziplining, paragliding, skydiving. In New Zealand, you can do it all. The country is also notable for being home to the first official zorbing site. Number 7. Maori Culture. One of the most appealing things about traveling internationally is the opportunity to learn about the destination's local cultures, both contemporary and historical. The indigenous Maori people of New Zealand share much in common with other Polynesian peoples, but having settled in present-day New Zealand about 700 years ago, theirs is a culture that feels unique to the nation. For those looking for a crash course in Maori history and culture, there are 2 places that you need to add to your travel itinerary: Rotorua and Taurawhiti. The latter is a coastal area of land where the Maori people's canoes are said to have first landed. Today, the area's population remains roughly 50% Maori. Here, you can observe a wide variety of cultural practices, including traditional dances, music, and art, and learn about the legends of the Maori people. Mount Hikurangi is a sacred site that makes for a great day trip. Number 6. Beaches. New Zealand is famous for its ecological diversity, as well as the vast array of landscapes that make up the island. Though often overshadowed by the towering mountains, glaciers, and rainforest, the beaches in New Zealand are not to be missed. In the aforementioned Tasman National Park, one finds sandy shores and brilliant blue waters. Wharariki Beach is a breathtaking stretch of sand devoid of human development located just west of Cape Farewell. With cliffs to the east and west, and with the Archway Island rising from the ocean to pierce the sky, the beach is downright surreal. And best of all, given that it's only accessible via a footpath, it rarely attracts crowds of any size. Some of the most popular beaches in New Zealand include Maitai Bay, 90 Mile Beach, Anchor Bay, and the surf town of Mount Maunganui. Number 5. Wine. Any trip to New Zealand is all but guaranteed to involve a fair amount of physical activity. But New Zealand invites you to balance out all that exercise by kicking back and treating yourself to some of the finer things in life. The country has a number of notable exports, but among the most internationally renowned is their wine. Year after year, the Sauvignon Blancs coming out of Marlborough consistently reinforce the region's reputation of excellence. Be that as it may, there are exciting wines being produced all over the country, from central Otago to Northland. Hawke's Bay is another notable region, though here it's Pinot Grigio that reigns supreme. Of course, wine this fine deserves a proper food pairing, so we highly recommend scheduling your trip to New Zealand so that it overlaps with the First Light Wine and Food Festival in Gisborne. Number 4. Wellington, the small city with big appeal. Given the country's natural splendor, it's safe to say that few people travel to New Zealand for a city-centric trip. Be that as it may, we'd be remiss not to point out the many things that the capital city of Wellington has going for it. Once there, you're likely to wish you'd allocated more time in your planning to exploring its many cultural offerings. The city takes its coffee culture very seriously and has firmly established itself as the capital of craft beer in New Zealand. It's actually something of a low-key foodie haven too. Though this capital city has historically played second fiddle to Auckland, another must-visit in its own right, Wellington has, in recent years, redefined itself as a hub for the arts, small businesses, and creatives. Plus, located on the coast and with Mount Victoria offering a scenic view of the city, Wellington just makes for an all-around beautiful urban environment. Number 3. It's got fjords. A term most commonly associated with Scandinavian countries, fjords are just about one of the most awe-inspiring geographical features on Earth. There's something about narrow inlets of ocean bordered by towering cliffs, mountains, and plateaus that never fails to wow. New Zealand's landscape is remarkable in many ways, but even by the country's own high standards, the fjordlands of the South Island stand out. New Zealand's dozen major fjords and the accompanying environment are collectively protected as the Fiordland National Park. The lack of development makes most of the fjords difficult to visit, with the exception of Milford Sound, which is accessible by road. It's been called the 8th wonder of the world and is consistently ranked as New Zealand's top attraction. For those willing to put in some extra time and effort, however, Doubtful Sound is an even larger fjord that can only be visited by boat and sees fewer visitors as a result. Number 2. The wildlife. As we previously mentioned, New Zealand's fauna is notable in that it poses very little risk in terms of safety. But don't misconstrue that as being synonymous with boring. New Zealand is notably rich in biodiversity, so danger is pretty much the only thing that it's lacking in terms of wildlife. Because the islands are relatively small and isolated, the local species have had millions of years to take a different evolutionary path than those of their distant relatives. The country is also home to a number of endemic species. Examples include a number of flightless birds like the weka, the kakapo, and most notably, the famous kiwi. The tuatara is a reptile endemic to New Zealand that's often described as a living fossil, given that it has no close living relatives. It can't even rightfully be called a lizard. Add to that the local marine life, and New Zealand is really an animal lover's paradise. Number 1. An opportunity to step into a fantasy world. Perhaps you've heard of a little billion-dollar franchise called The Lord of the Rings? New Zealand filmmaker Peter Jackson chose to film his trilogy in his own backyard, so to speak, and it's hard to argue with the results. Fans of the films, of course, will want to make a trip to Hobbiton, one of the few surviving sets from the movies. Even without fantasy creatures to populate it, however, New Zealand's landscape feels larger than life and utterly surreal. Taupo Bay wows with the contrast between its picture-perfect sandy beach and the impossibly green rolling hills that surround it. Aoraki, Mount Cook National Park is defined by its soaring snow-capped mountains and rugged green valleys and rushing rivers. Punakaiki's pancake rocks, despite being the result of erosion, look like the ruins of some long-extinct civilization. Tongariro Alpine Crossing, which served as the setting of Mordor in the films, is an alien world of rock and sulfur, while the Waitomo glowworm caves are like something out of a dream. Happy travels! Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MojoTravels. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.